The most important skill set that you need in Photoshop is actually selection, because you will need to identify the parts that you want to edit, and in order to do that you have to be able to select it or isolate it from the image. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to edit this portion of the building and we want to make it darker or brighter. Well, we need to select only that part, because right now if I edit any piece of this, it will edit the whole image. First of all, I would like you guys to make a copy of an image or a copy of your background image, just so that if you need to revert it back, that you're able to go back to it. So you just want to click and drag and drag it over this little plus icon and let it go. So then now you have a background copy. I'll turn off one, and then here I'll just name that edit photo. So in order to select, these are some of your selection tools. You have the rectangular tool, you have a lasso tool, and then you have a magic wand tool. But if you go down below that, you'll also have a quick selection tool. They both kind of work similarly, but I think this quick selection tool is a newer tool and it probably works a little better. So I'm going to keep that on. So for now, I'm going to use the rectangular tool. So you just click that, and then you'll see that the options bar changed. So this is just your regular tool selection. This is to add. So meaning if I drag a rectangle, I can click add and continue to add to that selection. If I click on that, I can actually delete a selection, like get rid of that. And then this is kind of the difference, which you rarely would ever use, so I'm not going to even bother with that. And again, this is to add. Another good way to do this, because sometimes I don't like to use these things because it's hard for me to deselect from here. This is your default mode, so if I click away from the box, single click, it'll deselect. If I start clicking again, it'll create a selection, and then you could either hold down Alt or Shift. If I do Shift, it'll add to the selection without me having to come up here. Again, if I hold down Shift, you'll notice here that it'll toggle. And if I hold down Alt, it'll go to Subtract, so I can take away selection. So in this case, I want to add the rest of the building, and I'm just going to do a basic rectangular selection like that. So the reason why I select it is because I want to isolate whatever I want to do right within this selection frame. I'll go to Adjustment, and let me just change the brightness and contrast. So I'll make it darker. So you see how that image, or I can make it brighter, and I can make it more contrasty as I'm pushing it a little bit too far. But anyway, here you go. OK. Get even darker and click OK. And then you just click away on the screen if you're in this mode. If you're here, it thinks that you want to create more selection, so you're not going to be able to get out of it. You could also go down here and go to Select and go to Deselect. The shortcut key for that will be Control D. So you just go Control D and then you can deselect. And there's a difference between that and the original image, right? So you can isolate. So selection is really the key and the most important part of Photoshop, really. I have the other file open here, Selection Tool, and I'll show you how to use this Quick Selection Tool. So what the Quick Selection Tool does is that as I brush on, Photoshop's going to recognize, oh, you're looking for stuff that are similar to this color range. So if I just kind of brush, it'll kind of select areas, and let's say I want to select the whole mannequin. I'll just continue to brush and kind of brush it on. And Photoshop actually does a really good job of understanding what you might want to select. Obviously, it selected some of this because it's looking at this color and that color, they're similar. It was probably looking at some of this color and that color was similar, so it's selecting some of that. I'm going to just use my shortcut key, Alt, which goes to the minus, and I'm going to kind of come in here and gently brush this off. And Photoshop kind of figured it out, so it's actually very intelligent. It wasn't this smart back in the days when I was using it, but you know, that was pretty darn easy. Now you'll see that I didn't get perfect here because this mannequin here, right at this area is very similar to the color of the background. So what you want to do is you can come in here, and if you really wanted to do a professional job, you want to come in here and really get in here and select some of that. And Photoshop can kind of figure out that you want to be in that edge. And another tool here, you have a bracket which next to the P button on your keyboard. The bracket actually reduces or increases your brush size. So I can come in here and be really fine and do that. But here also another tool that you could use is this lasso tool, which allows you to, okay, I'm going to go to the add, or else if I start clicking, all of my hard work will disappear. So I'm going to go to my add, and I can click and like kind of draw the area that I want, like that. And let's say I added too much here. Again, you can hold down the Alt and you can draw that part out. So, you know, Photoshop has gotten really, really good with their algorithm on the selection tool. Another thing you could do to make sure that you have absolutely perfect selection is to go to Select and Mask, and then it gets into a whole new window here. And in this view column, you could actually hit Overlay, and it'll make this kind of ruby red selection on the parts that is not selected. So I can see now that I'm missing a little bit of this gown, a little bit of this gown. So I can come in here, and then I can add and kind of simply brush away, because I'm in my brush tool, and simply brush away some of that red color. And again, I'm getting very picky here, but you know, you can really spend a good amount of time and really creating a really solid selection. The better your selection, the more quality, the higher your quality of your Photoshop edit will be. So actually I probably took off a little bit too much. Oops, I'm going to take away. I'm going to reduce my brush now. I'm going down the rabbit's hole here. Okay, so there you go. And then I am done. So click OK. And then so I have my selection. Another tool that I want to introduce you at this point is that sometimes you're going to want to save the selection and not have to reselect or redo all the work that you've been doing. So you want to come down here to Select. You want to say Save Selection, and you can say doll or whatever name you want. And then that way, if you deselect and the easiest way to do it is to go Control D, or you go back to your rectangular tool, this one, and click Away. And then now your selection is gone, but you can simply go up to your selection, load selection, go to doll, OK, and that selection will come back. And now let's do some editing here. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustment. Let me go to Vibrance and actually make it a little bit more saturated. You know, and so you can only, you know, it allows you to edit only the area that you selected. So selection is a very, very important tool of Photoshop. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.